comic book fans everywhere. You are now listening to the official Crossover Comics Podcast with your hosts at JJ's Comic Stuff and at Longbox Entertainment.
What is going on, everybody? You are either listening or watching to the official Crossover Comics Podcast. My name is Jeremy, one of your co-hosts, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Michael, aka Longbox Entertainment. And with us today is another special guest, not only from Crossover Comics group of people, but she's also a new member of Nerd Initiative. Once we get her going, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of good stuff going off of that. So, welcome, Saucers and Sorcery. What is up?
Hey, yeah, it's going pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. Can't complain.
A little tired, but you know, if you ain't tired, you ain't doing nothing, right? So.
That is so true. That is
very, very
facts,
true,
man. Yeah. So, Jess, I have wanted you on the show for so long. Okay, for so long, I've wanted you on the show because I'm like, we need to have her on the show. We need to talk about all things Wonder Woman, horror, all that stuff. Okay, because I know that's your expertise. But for the people who may not know you, let us know, what is your comic book origin story? How did you get into comics?
Yeah, so I was kind of always into like superhero stuff as a kid. Like I loved, Batman the animated series, the like 90s X-Men cartoons. And then when I was in high school, The Dark Knight came out. I think I was either a sophomore or a junior when that came out. And I had my first car and my first job that like paid money. And I remember going to the local Barnes and Noble and they had this like end cap and it had a bunch of like recommendations from the people who worked at the store. And one of them was Joker by Brian Azzarello. And the recommendation said, if you liked Batman the Dark Knight, you'll love this. And I immediately was like, well, I'm buying this. Like, because I'd already read like manga when I was younger in high school and middle school, but I'd never like gotten into comics. And then I just immediately fell in love. I just started going to my local comic book store and just like picking things up out of the dollar bin, not knowing what I was doing. And then when I was in college, I had a friend of mine who was like, oh, you like comics? Have you read this, or this? And I was like, no. And instead of him saying, oh, you're like a fake fan, he was like, do you want to borrow my books? And I was like, absolutely, yes, I do.
Yes, that's the way to be. Yes.
Yeah, it's exactly the way to be. And then I think it was my junior year of college was when the New 52 started. So me and about 3 of my other friends, we would go to the comic book store every Wednesday or Friday, mostly Fridays. We'd pick up books, and we'd each pick up like 2 or 3 titles. And then we'd go back to campus, have dinner, and then we would read and then pass our books around. So, like, if one person's buying Batman,
awesome.
One person's buying, like, Wonder Woman, and then we would just all share books and pass them around.
That's
awesome. And then it's kind of spiraled from there.
That's awesome, especially, like, being in college, because everyone's broke when they're in college. So,
oh, my God, yeah.
That's the best way to save money, man. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it really was.
I love that. But, now since you told us that, I want to know, what is it about Wonder Woman? I know that's your girl. I know that's your favorite. What gravitates you to Wonder Woman?
So I've always loved like Greek mythology. Always loved Greek mythology. I've joked with my husband that my mom raised me on equal parts Star Trek Next Generation and Xena Warrior Princess. And JJ's like, yeah. And it was around, I want to say like 3 or 4 issues into the New 52, and we were talking about comic books in my friend's dorm room, and a friend of ours, his girlfriend's like, oh, well, if you like this, have you been reading Wonder Woman? And I was like, is it good? And she's like, do you like Greek mythology? And I was like, go on. And I immediately went to about 2 or 3 different shops and found all of the Wonder Woman issues up until that point, and then immediately kept reading on after that, and I was immediately hooked. Hooked.
Yes. You know what's funny? The New 52 Wonder Woman was actually my first Wonder Woman series. So yeah, that got me into the character, because I was like, oh my gosh, she's badass.
Yeah.
And see, I'm still trying to get into like a lot of DC characters, and Wonder Woman's one of those. I literally like last week just started reading Rebirth. So
Rebirth is
that's
good.
basically my starting point for Wonder Woman right now.
It is a very good place to start because it was one of the books during Rebirth that was, I think it was either bi-monthly or weekly instead of monthly. So there was a main story and a backup, and the backup on Wonder Woman was an origin story. So you would be getting like plot in the current day, and then your next issue would be in part of the origin story. And the way they collected it in the trades, volume 1 is like, here's the story starting at Rebirth, and then volume 2 is all of the origin story. So you can read either volume 1 or volume 2 first, and it doesn't really matter.
Right. Okay, that's cool though. That's a good way to set it up.
It is. I love what they did with the Wonder Woman books, especially because one of my friends, she's a huge Wonder Woman fan, and she had the first 2 volumes of Rebirth. And like one day, me and my wife, we like went over to their place and like we're chilling. So I'm like, I'm one of those people. I like to look at everyone's comic book shelves. I don't know why, bro.
I do too.
So I'm looking at Wonder Woman. I was like, hey, you mind if I like read that real quick? She's like, yeah. And I read it because it's the story where they actually like found a way to get rid of the curse for Cheetah and all of that. And I really loved it. And then when I found out that Greg Rucka wrote that, and supposedly he has like a legendary Wonder Woman run, like pre-New 52, and I want to read that so bad.
It's very good. It is. It's in my top Wonder Woman runs. Both of his runs I think are fantastic. But yeah, I think they actually reprinted his original run.
Okay.
I've seen it. Like, I have the old out of print ones because I got into that run before they did the reprints. So I was like hunting on eBay, hunting like random like used vendors on Amazon, and now they're just like, oh no, we're reprinting it now.
But that's part of the fun of being an actual like hardcore collector is the hunt for some of this stuff. Because it's cool to find the collected editions and have it all, being able to read it. But if you can find all them old single issues, that's so much fun to hunt those down.
It is.
Because once you get like 5 or 6 of them, then you got to complete the run. I mean, then you don't have an option. Most collectors, their OCD is going to take over at that point.
Facts.
And I was hunting the old trades. Like, I was hunting the old out-of-print trades. And
those are honestly probably harder to find than the old single issues are.
They absolutely were.
Shoot, I could believe it, man. I've been, like, ever since, I need to, like, get right and just go on DC Universe Infinite and just read the run. But like certain stuff, I'm like, I want to experience this physically. Like, especially if people like recommend it.
That's how I am with a lot of indie stuff.
Right.
I want the physical book. Not only because I like physical collecting anyway, but also like I feel like I'm supporting the creator even more if I'm hunting down and finding the physical copy of something.
Right. So actually, Jess, I have another question for you. Since we talked about the Rucka run, what are your like top 3 favorite Wonder Woman runs that if someone came to you and they were like, hey, I want to read Wonder Woman, I have no idea where to start, what are your top 3 mentions?
Okay, so I think if they want an origin story, I would probably either recommend I think it was called The Legend of Wonder Woman. It was a pre-Rebirth like origin. I want to say it was like a 6 or 12 issue. That one was very good for an origin story. Or Greg Rucka's from Rebirth. Those are probably my 2 for like an origin story. But if you want to just like jump in and read Wonder Woman, I would probably either recommend Greg Rucka's original run, because I think he really kind of, and to me, he gets the character, like he gets that she is, like, she's the spirit of truth of the DC universe. Like I feel like he gets that. He gets her message of peace, and like you get to see her in his original run as like an ambassador. And like the people who work for her at the embassy, and you get that plus her being a superhero, and then you get a very iconic moment at the end of his run that involves Maxwell Lord.
Okay, I've read Infinite Crisis, so I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's the last volume. I think it's the last volume of his run where that happens. And it's honestly a fantastic like storyline from start to finish. Like, you get her fighting villains, you get her fighting like gods and like mythical creatures, and you get her fighting like people who just don't like her. They just don't like her message.
Nice.
And
so you basically just get a good chunk of everything.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I'd also recommend Azzarello's run, because as much as I don't love what he did with the Amazons, I think what he did with Wonder Woman was very well done.
Right. Okay. So what are your thoughts on like the George Perez era?
So I've read bits and pieces of the George Perez one. The most recent one that I read was, I think it was War of the Gods,
Okay.
which had some really good moments and had some very like kind of just okay moments, but I think that was mostly just because it's an event including so many characters that you can only ever get so much done. And honestly, my biggest issue was all the gods looked the same to me. That was one of the things that I was like, the gods kind of didn't have very kind of cool designs, which is kind of what I love about what Azzarello did. Yeah, the way he gives all of the gods these new designs, absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
And I
agree.
Some of them have stuck around too. Like they've kept a couple of his designs around. Like the current Hephaestus is still the design from that run.
Man, I love it. I always did like his designs on the way how he made like all of them look very distinct, and especially like he brought in this character that was new to me. I don't know if the character has been in any other Wonder Woman run, but the Firstborn.
Yep.
Man, that was like one of my favorite storylines in that whole run.
The entire run, like start to finish, is amazing, and I really enjoyed Perez's run as well. Like from the bits and pieces I've read, but his run, it's so much. He's written so much that I feel it's going to take me, even as like a Wonder Woman fan, where I read as much Wonder Woman as I can. Like it's still going to take me a while to get through all of his stuff because he's written so much for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it's a lot. I've only read his, because I own the 3 omnibuses. I've only read the first Omni, and it's a lot, and it's wordy. You know,
everything from that era is wordy, though.
Yeah, it's
so,
very
like,
of its time.
When people use that, like, because I know how you're using it. You're just saying, like, it's one of the things that adds to, like, making it a kind of a grind to read through. But I know some people that will be like, bro, I can't read that old crap. It's not good. Like, I'm like, you're mistaking not good for out of date.
Right. It's still good.
You know, like, right. But you got to think of what the time period when it came out. Like,
true.
That was the style of how you did a comic book back then.
It's true. And it's one of Perez's like more known works. You know, like that's his Wonder Woman run is up there with like, you know, Crisis on Infinite Earths and his Avengers runs. You know, stuff like that. But yeah. So I do want to address the elephant in the room, because we talked about this while I was messaging you.
We did. I already know what you're going to say.
There's an elephant in the room?
There is an elephant in the room, JJ. It has something to do with a certain movie. You know?
Oh, yes.
It's like Jess has never fully watched the movie. You've seen bits and pieces, right?
I've seen bits and pieces of both of them, but the way that I see it is if you're like, do you want to watch a Wonder Woman movie or do you want to read a comic? I'm going to choose the comic every time. Mm-hmm. And every single time I'm like, oh yeah, I'll watch a little bit. I'll like catch pieces here and there, but I'd rather just read it. And I'm just like, it's the same with like Marvel and stuff. There's so much of like the Marvel movies and like projects that I haven't seen, or I haven't seen fully, or I've only just like half watched, just because if it's a comic, I'd rather read it. And depending on like the property, I'd rather play it, like Injustice. Like,
Right.
then again, I read Injustice and I played Injustice.
So you can make exceptions to certain things. I see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. Well, Injustice hooked me because a friend of mine had the game and we like played it. I think that came out when I was a senior in college or like right after I finished. So I played a few rounds and I was like, my friend was like, there's a comic too. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, there's what? And then like I found a used copy of the Ultimate Edition for PS3, read the comics, played the game. Like I love the Injustice universe, but they do my girl Wonder Woman dirty in that.
They do.
They do everybody dirty in that.
They do. I mean, look, y'all know me. Injustice, I have a love-hate relationship with Injustice because y'all know I love Superman. Okay, like my TikTok, I have like thousands of Superman videos, which is weird. So you know, the Injustice version of Superman just doesn't do it for me.
I was gonna say, speaking of Superman, real quick, have you happened to read this yet?
I haven't, only because I'm waiting for the trade.
It's really good. It's really good. You might want to make an exception. And you know I'm not a huge Superman fan. If I'm saying that...
Okay, bet. I'm gonna jump on it, only because you said it.
And I'll say this, the first few pages, I almost gave up on it.
Really?
Because it was going for a very tired new trope that's been being used a lot. And I was just like, really? Like, does every story have to start out this way now? Like,
right.
But you'll see what I mean when you read it. I don't want to spoil it for nobody.
Okay, bet. I'm gonna go to my LCS and see if I can like find it. Cause I'm like trade. So when it comes to like the Superman trades, I just wait for the trades. And I know Jess, you're kind of similar, where like you can wait for the trades. I like to binge. That's just me.
Same.
Yeah.
The only thing that I have been buying the single issues for is the Batman One Bad Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, because of, I think it was that Nerdy Papa Bear in Discord, Swamp Thing Green Hell.
I've heard you are not the only person that's mentioned that series, and now I'm like, you know, that's the one thing about being a part of Crossover Comics. Y'all are toxic, okay? My wallet hates me because of y'all, okay?
Are you talking about this right here?
Yep.
There we go.
I literally just happened to have this sitting next to me. That was so not planned.
Okay, that's a sign. That's like 3 times I've heard this series mentioned. It's a sign. I have to read it now. Gosh.
Bro, we had to wait like a year for that issue too, though. Like, it was ridiculous how long that took.
I lucked out, and when I heard about it, it was when they reprinted the first issue, and I only had to wait a month for issue 2. But I was at a shop yesterday, and my best friend wanted to read it, so she actually grabbed books 1 and 2 at the shop we were at.
Oh, she's gonna be so mad when she has to wait like 8 to 9 months for the next issue.
Well, I was looking online just to see if I could find when book 3 comes out, and the hardcover collected edition is already up for pre-order. So I was like, oh, okay, and going in my cart right now, and going to pre-order that.
Goes to Amazon right after this. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I know, I've heard a whole lot.
Making some notes.
And actually, this is a good segue to another one of your, you know, things of fandom that you love, horror.
I am a big horror fan.
Yes. Actually,
I'm a horror guy too, so.
A lot of people don't know. I actually really like horror. Like, I would dive in it. I know I haven't really made like any TikTok videos on it, but JJ got me reading Something is Killing the Children. I'm really enjoying that. And so yeah, like, what are some of your favorite like horror comics or stories?
Ooh, so for horror comics, I'm always like up for trying anything new when it comes to horror. My most recent one that I think I like really fell in love with was The Nice House on the Lake.
I've heard about that one.
That was a really good one.
I heard it might have been Comic Stash or Cody. One of the two of them, I heard them mention it.
I think it was both of them. They were both raving about that series when it first came out.
Isn't that James Tynion?
And
as well?
I believe so, yeah. That one, I ended up picking the trade up, and I read it, and I was like, this is amazing, and immediately went and pre-ordered the second trade, which comes out in like a week, I think.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm just going to immediately drop whatever I'm reading and be like, gotta finish this. I need to finish this.
Man, because I've noticed I haven't read a James Tynion horror book until Something is Killing the Children. And
Really?
Yeah, I've just recently, that was my first one. I keep hearing y'all talk about it. So I went on Hoopla and I'm like, all right, let me try it out, see how I like it. And
If you want another one, this is like horror-esque, but it's UFO stories. Also by Tinian. It's brand new. It just came out this past week.
bet the Blue Book. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it was called Blue Book from Dark Horse.
Bet. Yeah.
And it's Tinian is writing it, but they're all like the series is going to be a series of like 5-issue chunks, and the 5-issue chunks are each a different actual abduction story from real life.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yes, it's something different. Like, I'm sure, people who aren't into alien stories and stuff are probably going to be like, it's kind of hokey, because most of those are labeled as nut bags anyway, but I think it's kind of cool. It's something different, and that's what I like Tinian a lot, is because he finds these random things to make comic books about, man, and he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, yeah. Because just reading the 5 issues of Something is Killing the Children, I was like, dude, these 5 issues are better than like his Batman work. Like, what is this is amazing. I just kept reading.
Oh, just wait till you get into like volume 2 and 3, and then into House of Slaughter. Like, dude, I'm telling you, that's one of the best series out right now.
Oh man. Oh.
It's on my like short list to read in the next month because
it's on it's gonna be on Amazon. Tinian is involved in production. All kind, dude. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It just got it just got picked up by Amazon. I actually wrote an article for that on nerdinitiative.com. Make sure you go check that out. But
just a little plug, just a little.
I try to sneak them in there when I can. I got a lot of things to promote these days, so.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. So you said that. Dang, I just had like a brain fart. Dang.
That's alright.
That never happens. Oh my gosh.
You were talking about how everybody's been talking about Tinian.
Yeah, right? I'm like, whoa, okay, this is definitely going to be a clip on the TikTok. Okay. But yes, horror. So I feel like I haven't read as many horror comics as I was like to, because even though I do like to read horror, or that I like to watch like horror movies and stuff, I'm still a punk, okay? Like I still get scared, all right? Like,
that's half the fun.
It is.
Right.
It is. And like, I don't know. I feel like James just makes the way he writes horror, and he has the creepy vibe. And I love how in the art, gore is used very sparingly. Like,
it's not just everywhere for no reason. It's not just gore for
Yes.
gore's sake.
yes. And
Everything you see actually means something in the story, like or at least it makes it feel like it does.
yes. Oh man. I love it.
And there's also so many like different kinds of horror too. So it's like, do you want something that's more like kind of has horror elements but kind of goes into other genres? Do you want something that's kind of maybe like in the superhero genre but sort of also has horror elements to it? Do you want body horror? Do you want like a thriller? Like, there's so many different flavors of horror too. So
But then you can get into the supernatural stuff where you've got like magic or spirits, or you can just keep going and going and going.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love horror, because there's so many different flavors of horror. So like, I could read something like Hellboy, and then I could go, and after reading Hellboy, I could go and read like something from Junji Ito, and they're going to have such different horror vibes, but they're both still horror and they're both still entertaining.
Right. Actually, I think the Japanese, at least when it comes to like manga, I think they do, horror better than American comics.
Bro, their comics, their movies,
Man.
their shows, like, bro, when it comes to horror, that part of the world's got it on lock.
Yes. Yes.
Because I've seen a lot of Korean shows and Korean films too that are just outstanding horror flicks.
Yes. I just want to plug one manga that I've been reading that's so good. It's called Blood on the Tracks. Okay, read it. It will fuck with your brain. That's all I'm gonna say. It'll fuck with your brain.
That's definitely going to be on my list now. I'm always looking for especially like new horror manga to read because I am a diehard Junji Ito fan. Like I recently read Black Paradox, and it is I love that he can take something so messed up and like even when you're not getting a jump scare like you think you should get in like horror, the imagery he uses, you're just like the effort it took for him to draw this and just how intricate his art is, and it's just like even if you're not like scared, you're like you can appreciate like this came out of someone's imagination and they drew this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like though for Junji Ito, I would probably recommend Uzumaki first. That's probably like my main recommendation for him.
I've heard of that. I haven't like read any of his work, but I've heard such great things, and I've seen like some of his art, and I love how detailed it is.
It's very detailed,
man. And I even because they did like a little anime adaptation of some of his work.
Yeah, so there was I'm trying to remember what the exact name was. It was a bunch of shorts. Like every episode was a different short, and people either love it or hate it, mostly because sometimes the animation was not the best. Like there's literally in one part a character running across the forest, and it's like a PNG that they like move like this across the screen.
Wow.
Now, in the defense of that, that's also like kind of a trope of that media. Like they use that for comedic thing, or they use like, you know, and also like a lot of anime budgets are not very much money. Like these guys are working with like bare bones budgets. Like some of these anime are literally coming out a day after they get done animating them.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the reasons why like I really enjoyed it, and I remember telling somebody I enjoyed it, and they were like, "You enjoyed that? It's so like, oh, it's
well,
so,
like go back and watch
choppy
any
at
anime really from like the 80s or the 70s, and the animation's not good on any of them.
I mean, yeah.
People's mouths don't move necessarily all the time when they're talking. Like there's all kinds of wacky things. Like go back and watch the first like season and a half of the very first Gundam series. The animation is god awful.
Right. I agree. I mean, that's just like...
But they were also working with brand new animators and artists. They were also working with practically no freaking budget, and they had like a 2-week deadline on every episode. So...
Oh, yeah. And some of them were ending before, like, the manga. Like Evangelion, I'm pretty sure. That, I think, ended before they ended the manga. And the way that they ended the anime, people hated it so much that that's the reason we got End of Evangelion. Is because, like, they went ahead of the actual book. And we're like, all right, let's keep going. I'm pretty sure that was Evangelion. I might be wrong. If I am, I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know. But
I know there's several like anime that have ended like before like the manga, because I know like the Akira movie, the manga was still actively like in production like while they filmed that film, so the ending was like completely different than what you get in the ending of the manga. Or the same thing.
There's a lot of anime that do that kind of stuff though. Like Full Metal Alchemist kind of did that, where it was like they had a movie that wasn't even related to the manga at all, and then they had the original series they put out, at least here in the States, was Full Metal Alchemist, and it wasn't actually accurate to the manga. They like restructured it so it made more sense to Western audiences, and then they came out with that Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is supposedly far more accurate to the manga than anything else.
It is.
Yeah, I think there was something similar with like Hellsing. So it's Hellsing and it's Hellsing Ultimate.
Hellsing is a good manga.
Which I remember.
For
loving Hellsing.
new people into the medium like myself who's trying to learn more about it, it confuses the heck out of me sometimes because I don't know what's accurate and what's not.
Right.
Always. So thank goodness my little brother behind this wall you see behind me, he is like if I opened his door to his room and showed you guys, I'm telling you, it's like nothing but anime posters and plushies and models, and like it just goes on and on and on. His cabinets are full of movies. Like it's insane.
Bad.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that what's accurate, what's not right now, because a friend of ours, he is have. He comes over every couple weeks and we watch anime, and we've been watching through Slayers, and Slayers has like AMVs, and then there's the TV show for Slayers, and I'm like, so does this take place before or after? And he goes, yes. And I'm like, he's like, they're connected, but they're not.
Yes. It makes it very hard for new people to get into stuff like that. Like, it really does. People say comics are hard to get into. Anime's a beast unto itself.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, like with me, similar to you, Jess, like I rather you with like movies, I rather read a manga than watch the anime. Just because I feel like I read a lot faster than I watch stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that very much.
So
for me, it just really depends on what I'm watching or reading or whatever, and then it also depends on how much time I have when I'm trying to consume that.
right.
If I don't, because it takes me longer to read something sometimes than it does to watch something, and I can also have something playing while I'm doing other stuff. I can't read and do other stuff at the same time.
Right. I feel that. I'm always reading some, man. Like sometimes I be at work, read, like, even though I shouldn't be.
Oh, trust me, there's a whole stack of stuff here that I still need to read. Like,
But yeah, another thing I really wanted to talk about, because I know, Jess, you really like indies, right? Like you really
I do. I do read a lot of indie stuff, and as far as like the main DC Marvel, I lean more towards DC, but I do read a lot of indie books.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, as of right now, if you're reading a current indie series, like, what is your favorite indie that is out right now?
Ooh. Well, I already said something. I already said Nice House on the Lake, but I just read Grimm Volume 1 today, and I really enjoyed it. That's probably the most recent one that I read that I was like, okay, yeah, this is really good. I loved the art style, the coloring. I immediately was like, can I pre-order Volume 2? And I was able to. It is up for pre-order. But yeah, as far as indies, that's the one that I've probably most currently that I read. I mostly read a lot of backlist, though. So like last month, I read through the second half of House of Mystery, which I think was from like early 2000s, like Vertigo.
Okay.
And before that, I read through The Dreaming, which was from like 2018, also like DC Vertigo.
Okay. You know, actually, the fact that you said The Dreaming, it made me think of like Dream from the Sandman, and I know you love the Sandman.
I do. It is my favorite graphic novel series of all time.
So, you know what's great? So, I actually, it was weird. Like, I thought about you today because I was reading Dark Knight's Metal. And I know you like metal as well. I don't know why. I know you like metal as well. So, I was reading Dark Knight's Metal. And, you know how, have you read it before? You have? Okay.
I have read metal and death metal.
And then, like, when Dream shows up, I'm like, oh, hey there, man. I didn't know you were going to be here. And then the fact that...
I know you!
And then the fact that... Because this was my first time reading Dark Knight's Metal. And the fact that Wonder Woman was, like, such a badass in the story. And I was like, this is the perfect read for today. And the fact that I am filming this podcast later...
It's funny how stuff like that works out sometimes. Yes. Like, you don't even mean it to, and it's just like, oh, dude, this was perfect timing.
Yes.
And the question is, though, did you listen to the Dark Knight's Metal soundtrack? Because
yes,
they did come out with
yes. I had it played in a car. So, like, when me and my wife, we were going to, like, Walmart because we got to pick up some stuff, and I had it playing, and she was like, babe, like, are you listening to metal? I was like, oh yeah. I was like, it's for the, cause she was like, she was like, you don't listen to metal? I was like, well, like, it's for the, I'm getting cultured right now. Let me be cultured.
I'm getting cultured.
Okay? Like, man. But yeah.
Oh,
it's crazy.
man.
Yeah.
It was so
Wait till you get to death metal as a soundtrack for that too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm reading that next. That's my next read.
Yeah. Well, and my husband is a huge metalhead, so when I found out that there was a soundtrack, I was like reading through. He's like, "Oh, like who are the artists?" And I started reading through, and he's like, "Wait, Jerry Cantrell did a song for a DC comic book?" And I'm like, "Yup," and it's one of the best ones on the soundtrack.
Of course it is. Look who
Setting
did
Sun.
it. I mean,
Like, Chino Moreno did a song on both metal and death metal. I'm a huge Deftones fan, so as soon as I was like looking through the track list and I saw Chino Moreno, I was like, I am intrigued.
Yes. Oh man, it was just crazy. Like, and I really love that. I fell in love with the story, even though I had like a couple of issues with it, like especially with the tie-ins. But man, Wonder Woman. Like, just to get back on Wonder Woman for a second, because I know earlier you said one of the reasons you love Wonder Woman, the fact that she's like the embodiment of truth, and in metal, you know, with, you know, Barbados and all that stuff, there's a lot of lies being spread. You know, there's dream worlds. You know, some characters don't even know what's real, especially with the like Superman and Batman subplot, whatever. But the fact that Wonder Woman was the character that brought them out of that. When she wrapped the lasso of truth around them, and they came in and they have their little 10th metal armor. Oh man, I wish y'all saw me. I wish I wish comic book reactions was a thing, bro. Because dude, I was so giddy.
It's such a good, and that's like you said, that's one of the things I love about Wonder Woman is that like she's the spirit of truth, but she's also like she also is not like everyone always thinks like, oh, she's the only one of the Justice League who's okay with killing people, and I'm like, I mean, like, yeah, she is an Amazon, and like that is, but like I think from Gail Simone's run where like, do not kill if you can wound, do not wound if you can subdue, do not extend your arm, do not extend your arm until you've extended your hand, kind of a thing. I don't remember the exact wording, but like, not only is she this like spirit of truth, but she's also like, she sees the best in her villains too.
Yes.
And I love that about her. Like that, like, not only is she just like this spirit of truth, but she's this like spirit of like love and forgiveness too. And it's just, oh, she's amazing.
That's one thing I like about the Rebirth, especially that Volume 1, the fact that I really saw the fact that she cared about Cheetah. And like she felt bad for what happened to Barbara. And I'm just like, oh man, I love Wonder Woman. And I do think she's a character that a lot of people don't understand, you know? And back to like adaptations, I feel like the only version of Wonder Woman where I feel like that is Wonder Woman is from the Justice League cartoons.
I agree. I agree. I think they really do her very well in those. And I remember watching those as a kid
100%.
and loving them. And like every Wonder Woman episode, I remember enjoying so much. And I also love her and Batman like together. Like,
How she's constantly hitting on Batman and he just wants none of it.
he's like shy. He wants it, but he's like, no, I am Batman. I can't be
Right,
happy.
like, I have to be... Right, I have to be Mopey.
Oh man, I love it. Actually, and speaking of that, Jess, this is another segue. We have a lot of segues up in here. JJ, did you read that issue?
Which issue?
JLA number 90.
No, I did not because I couldn't remember what you said because you didn't send it to me.
I didn't?
You just said it. No, you just told it to me during a live on TikTok and I was not anywhere to write it down. You never sent me the thing on text, I don't think.
My fault. That's my bad. That's my bad. Okay. Anyway, if anyone loves like Wonder Bat, JLA number 90 is the issue for you. It's one and done story. It is so beautiful. I really wish it shows you the possibilities of Wonder Woman and Batman if they actually were in a relationship, and how beautiful it could be, and also how devastating it could be at the same time. So, man.
Well, because she's immortal.
Hmm.
She's immortal. It's
Well, not only that, she could snap him in half if she felt like it. I mean,
then again,
bro,
so
that is
could-
one
so
girl
could
that you
Big
do
Barda
not want to go to
to
bed
Mr.
angry with.
Miracle.
That's all I'm saying.
It is true. So can Big Barda to Mr. Miracle. Like, Mr. Miracle, man.
Like, bro, like, y'all boys better be careful, man.
So could Black Canary to Green Arrow.
At
Like,
least that's more of an even matchup, though. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a god punching a normal human being, like
That is true.
That's kind of why
without
I like
all his armor suits and all his fancy stuff, man. I'm sorry if Wonder Woman punched him in the stomach because she was mad one day. She could end him.
It'd be over with.
That's kind of why I like her and Siegfried in the current Wonder Woman run, Becky Cloonan's run. If you haven't read it, it is absolutely fantastic. Longbox, you mentioned you were reading Metal. Once you finish Death Metal, Becky Cloonan's run, Volume 1 Afterworld, starts right after Death Metal.
Okay.
And it is fantastic. And she and a Norse god have this little, like, romance, and it's adorable. I love them together, and I hope they keep, like, everyone calls him Siggy. It's Siegfried. Everyone calls him Siggy, and I hope that they keep him around forever, because he is adorable. Like, the levity he brings to the series, because he's very much like, you know how, like, when they unfroze Cap, and like, they had that potential to make him be such a hilarious fish out of water, which I feel like they only ever got right in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, where he would be like, Tony, look at this machine, it makes the coffee for you. Like, they're doing little bits of that with Siegfried in the Wonder Woman run, where he is, like, wearing a t-shirt, but he's like, Steve Trevor, please help me with this tie, and he's wearing a t-shirt and a tie. Like, he doesn't know how, like, fashion works.
Oh my gosh.
One thing the MCU did, they did venture into that a little bit with Cap in one part. I think it was in the first Avengers movie, where they're all sitting around the table and Robert Downey Jr. makes some kind of movie reference or something, and Cap just goes, I understood that reference. Because it was about a really old movie that he had actually been able to see or whatever.
It was a Wizard of Oz reference.
Oh, that's what it was,
Yeah,
yes.
it was a Wizard of Oz reference. But, yeah, I feel like they could have done so much more, like, absolutely doesn't understand culture things with Steve and with Bucky. Like,
True.
Like, literally, they could have done so many things, I think, in the MCU with that, with, like, what do you mean this thing makes our coffee for us? Like,
True, yeah.
What do you mean we don't put this electric kettle onto the stove and turn it on, like, melting plastic? And
Yes, that would have been good. I wish they did something like that, man. Or even, like...
Popcorn rice after discussion.
Want to know some more fun facts?
Isn't it awesome to see some of your favorite content creators and favorite people, honestly, if you follow here on this tab, be a part of this amazing community called the Nerd Initiative?
The Nerd Initiative presents the Comic Press Podcast, hosted by JJ's Comic Stuff.
Or even, like...
They need to give us, like, a quote-unquote behind the scenes with the Avengers, like, all that little stuff, like Thor trying to figure out an elevator. Oh. You know, like, simple stuff like that. Like, somebody who's never been in one, you're like, what the hell is this little box I'm getting into? Like,
You know what's crazy? That's actually...
we need a fluffy slice of life superhero series.
yes.
I
feel
would
like we need
kill
some
for
of that.
a fluffy slice of life.
I feel like that would bring a new audience into comic books, too, if there was more stuff like that in there.
Honestly, if you do want, like, a slice of life type of superhero thing, if you have webtoons, Wayne Family Adventures, it's very slice of life. I love it. Like, there's a whole little chapter about Alfred's cookies and how the Bat family just loves Alfred's cookies, bro. Like,
see, I need to get back on Webtoons and check some stuff out, because the first time I got on there and looked at stuff was back when Webtoons first came out. And back then it was a lot of really, really poorly written fan fiction, poorly written werewolf smut, or just smut in general. And there was like nothing else on there.
Oh, I was in the same boat. I remember
I had that app for like a week, and every time I opened it, I felt dirty. So I eventually like got rid of the app. But like I said, this was back in like when did that app come out? Like 2009, like right after smartphones became a thing. So back then, like that's all it was just weird smut. Like,
I mean, now I've had that stuff.
And if that's your thing, hey, more power to you. But for me, I was like, not really what I thought I was going to get on here.
That's kind of the experience I've had with Kindle Unlimited with some of the manga, because I'll be looking, I'm like, oh, like let's find like a nice like little fluffy like romance rom-com thing, and I will get like 3 pages in and be like,
this is not what I thought it was.
I did not sign up for something extra, and I'll immediately be like, at least with Kindle Unlimited, like it's a rental service, so like I'll like get 4 pages in and be like, return. Because it's like a rental service, like the library. Like you're basically borrowing it and then you return it at the end. So at least with that, it's like I didn't purchase it. Like I pay my
it's not
pay
on
my
the credit
fee
card
every
report,
month.
you know?
That's funny. Oh man. But yeah, now like DC, they have like a whole like license on like webtoons. They have like a
right. Like now, I know there's like a whole bunch of indie creators that get on there and put their comic books up there. There's a lot of manga writers that put their stuff. Like there's a lot of actual content there now. Mm-hmm. But in the early days of that app, it was a little bit scary. You know?
Is Webtoon the one that has the Jeff the Land Shark comic too? Because I've seen some of those ones.
I think it is
really
it's either Webtoon or it's Comixology that got the Jeff the Shark one.
I think so.
I want to say it was Webtoon.
I just know they're funny. But yeah, Wayne Family Adventures. I recommend that, and I also recommend this Red Hood comic that is on there as well. It's pretty good. Because actually, it has.
I'll have to re-download the app.
I mean, hey. Those 2 is all I recommend now. Everything else, I don't know. They'll be like, oh,
like I said, it's probably a whole different atmosphere on that app nowadays. Back in the early days, it was weird stuff, but I digress.
I read like half of Lore Olympus on there, but the thing about a weekly comic where you know that it's a romance and you know that these characters are going to end up together because it's Persephone and Hades, it was so slow burn that I was like, too slow. This is too slow. Like, I need something to happen. Also, some of the Greek gods are done so dirty in that. Like, Ares gets done so dirty in like if you've read Lore Olympus, like the Greek gods are terrible, but I feel like Apollo gets done so dirty. I'm like, Apollo's like, all the gods are terrible if you read actual mythology, but I feel like Apollo
they're all awful
so dirty in Lore Olympus.
Man, speaking of like other thing that deals with like Greek gods or everything, now I've never read this, so let me know if I'm wrong if you guys have read it, but Jess, have you ever read Promethea?
It's on my list. I actually recently bought a poster collection because it had Sandman Overture posters in it, and some of them are Promethea covers, and the posters are so beautiful that I'm like, I think I need to look into this series a little bit.
Right. Because I feel like that would be right up your alley. Because every time I've seen like art from it, it kind of gives me like a Wonder Woman, Greek mythology vibe. And it's written by Alan Moore, so it's going to be pretty good or decent.
At least good.
Yeah, at least good. So that was something I always wanted to check out, and I just never had the chance. It's kind of hard to read everything, But.
Oh my like TBR, like to be read pile is like, it never gets smaller. Especially because things are in like series too. Mm-hmm. So I'll be like, oh, maybe I want to, like I recently was really wanting to read some more X-Men. And I was looking into like, okay, so if I read this run, then where do I go next? And I'm like, okay, this is getting like, my TBR was just expanding.
See,
because as far as Marvel, the X-Men are what interest me. So I'm like, oh, I'm in for a lot.
Yeah, because my take on the X-Men is this. You know how somebody would be like, hey, this month I'm going to do a deep dive into this character or this storyline or whatever. You know, somebody like, you'll focus on a certain character for like a month. If you want to focus on X-Men, you can't do it for a week or a month. Or you literally have to dedicate like a year and a half to only reading X-Men if you want to keep up and finish a run.
To get
with how many tie-ins, because not only are there tie-in issues to each major event, but all of the single issues by themselves, the separate series, all also tie in together into a bigger overall story every time. The current, we talked about this with Cody Collects over on the Comic Press with me, him, and Michael, and we did the math and I did the research. The current run of X-Men is still the same event that started back in 2021, which is Destiny of X. There are still currently 137 something issues in this one event of X-Men, and it's still going.
Nope.
and there's no real main line of X-Men anymore. There's like X-Men Immortal, there's Immortal X-Men, there's it just keeps, there's like all these different separate series, X-Men Red, Excalibur, now the Exterminators, now they've got so many. It's like they really almost at this point need to break off and become their own company.
Yeah.
And just make X-Men the X-Men universe. Like, seriously at this point.
And people say there's a lot of Bat books.
There is a lot of Bat books. However, characters get their own storylines. There are Elseworld books going on at the same time.
We can still
the Batman
follow
stuff is yes, it's still followable. You don't have to read everything to know what's going on. You can read Detective Comics and not read mainline Batman and still know what's going on.
Facts.
You can't read X-Men Red without reading Immortal X-Men, without reading Excalibur, without reading everything else that's coming out. Now they've got Captain Britain coming out.
One of the things that I appreciate is a lot of the time when I have read X-Men books, at least because I'm a backlist reader, at least with some of the backlist ones, if there's something you need to know from another run, they'll normally put like a little bubble being like, this happened in this book here, and you can still kind of get the story without having to like have read it for the most part, at least in the trades. Right. I find that they do that. I don't know what's going on with Krakoa right now, so
you look at a single issue of X-Men right now, and it's literally every page has like 3 of those boxes telling you this happened in this issue. You can refer to this in that issue. And it's like, you literally have to be reading like 14 different runs of X-Men to understand everything that's going on.
It's a full-time job to be an X-Men fan right now.
You know the sad thing?
It really is.
It used to not always be like that with X-Men, because like I own like a lot of like,
it happened in the 90s.
The omnibuses.
It started happening in the 90s.
Oh, most definitely. When you could tell, because it was because I own like a lot of the omnis, right? At first it was just X-Men, and then that title,
Uncanny X-Men or whatever,
or Uncanny. It was X-Men, then it changed to Uncanny X-Men. So yeah, Uncanny X-Men. That's it. And then they added New Mutants, and that's it. That's all you had for the longest. Then they added Excalibur, and then they added just X-Men with no Uncanny on it. Then
then you had X-Force
and X-Force and Deadpool, and it just kept going and going. And I'm like, bro, like how?
And it never stopped. It never stopped. Once they got the ball rolling in the 90s with all those spin-off issues and series that still were all tied in, they just ran with that and never stopped that model.
And I mean, there are some more like modern runs that you can just read just that one series. Like Astonishing X-Men, you can just read that and know what's going on,
All New Wolverine is very easy to follow.
But you really gotta know what you're looking for. You've got to know what you're looking for with X-Men, though, because that X-Men is not new reader friendly. It's just not.
It's not. I can agree. It's not.
I mean, I think from one of the ones that I read, I knew about certain characters, which probably did help, but I started with I think it's Marvel Now. I read the first volume of that, and then I read Battle for the Atom, and even though I wasn't reading, I think it's either Uncanny or I think it's Uncanny X-Men is the other one from Marvel Now. I didn't need to. It was just like, okay, there's two teams. Scott and Emma are over here, and then we have like Kitty Pryde and like the Xavier School over here. And it so far has been a pretty decent jumping on point. And I've only read Volume 1 and then Battle for the Atom, which is the event. It so far seems pretty
Coherent.
Coherent, but as the run goes on, I don't know. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I don't know what, man, the comics gate in the 90s, it was just, it screwed so much stuff up for the future.
Dude.
X-Men still hasn't recovered from it. Just not that it's not selling well or anything like that. X-Men's selling just fine, I'm sure. But it's just the simple fact that it's like, they haven't made it any easier to get into this stuff.
It's hard. And I feel like it's already a daunting task to get into comics in general, you know? Honestly, I'm all for just do a reboot. Just do one big fat reboot and just change it up.
Well, that's what they did with Marvel Now. That was like a whole universe reboot. But yeah,
No, but I mean like a legit just start over from scratch, like Dawn of DC,
completely
Dawn of DC
stop
still
printing
has
everything that's current right now and start off a brand new issue 1 of everything.
I don't want no previous continuity. Ultimate Marvel this thing.
Let's start over with new origins. Let's start over with maybe even different characters in the roles.
Right.
I wouldn't be mad at that, honestly.
Because even though say Dark Knight Metal, it takes place during the Rebirth era, but technically the Rebirth era was a reboot, but they make references to when Aquaman had the harpoon hand, and that's back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was pre-Crisis, wasn't it?
Yes.
The Rebirth universe is essentially everything is canon and nothing is canon, and you're just along for the ride, which part of me kind of appreciates, because I recently read the Justice League Dark run from I believe it takes place after either Metal or Death Metal. I think it's Metal. And Wonder Woman's leading the team, and they reference Saga of Swamp Thing from Alan Moore multiple times because it has Swamp Thing, Zatanna, John Constantine, and they reference that run of Swamp Thing multiple times, and every single time you didn't need to read it to get it, but the fact that I've read that run, I was like, "Aw, I know that one."
It was just a nice fan.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Fan service.
Fan service, yeah.
I mean, and that's true. Even that is, I think that's one of the greatest things about reading comics. When you're reading a storyline and you start to piece together the bits and pieces.
What's actually continuity and what's not. That's how people get their own headcanons too.
Yes.
Because you can put in pieces ooh, what happened in between there that they never wrote about in anything. You can kind of make up your own little stories in between stuff.
Bro, literally earlier, today, when I was reading Dark Knight's Metal, there was a tie-in where Batman saw this lady, because back in the 1800s, the Thomas Wayne at the time was a part of this cult, and they did a sacrifice, and that's what they built Gotham on her grave and all that stuff, right? The bits for that storyline happened in a Batman comic in the 90s, bro. I have it in a trade. So I was like, bro, I've read that, and that's from the freaking 90s. And then they're making references to the Grant Morrison run on Batman, and I'm like, dude, I love that when everything just comes together. It's dude, I'm a freaking nerd, bro.
Oh, we're all nerds. That's what we're here for, man. That's how we all started, becoming friends with each other was
Yeah.
because we were on TikTok being nerds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Needed other people to be nerds with. But on that note, I think we are just about out of time for this evening. So, Jess, is there anything you want to plug, or where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I am mostly on TikTok, Saucers and Sorcery. I also have an Instagram, but I don't really post there super often. But yeah, mostly just on TikTok, Saucers and Sorcery. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to promote. I don't know, JJ, I know you have a lot of stuff to plug.
I'm not going to go down the list. Just look in the description of the video down below. You'll see all kinds of links to all kinds of stuff. So make sure you look at that to find me and everything I'm doing. Longbox, where can they find you at?
You can find me on TikTok, Longbox_entertainment, as well as Instagram. I've actually started to be a lot more active on Instagram lately. So
I've noticed that.
yeah, so hopefully, y'all can find me there. And if you can't find me there, I'm probably at your mom's house. So yeah. I'm kidding.
And on that note, everybody, make sure to always be safe, be kind, and take it easy. We will see you guys next time.